So we must do two things, two great things together to encompass that enormous new view that lies before us, but to encompass it within the framework of science, to see it within the whole categorical framework of science, and to see that these two are not separate, but that they are wedded. The bigness of the idea, the newness of the idea, the greatness of it is one with the structure of science, the structure of being itself.
All right, so what are the characteristics that come out at the point of Christianity? Really, that we begin to exhibit and to show forth and to manifest the qualities of confidence. You see, really being self-assured, but assured in that true selfhood. This is confidence. Determination. Determination really of falling back on that sense of being definite, of being certain, of wanting to stick to it, to persevere. I just call up those terms from my tonality. To be determined is, in the sense of soul, is to have that stick-to-itiveness. This is the soul in us, that we don't fall off and fall away and don't become a sluggard in the race, as she says in the second chapter, that hang in there. You have all this terminology, these colloquialisms are marvelous. Hang in there, pull up your socks, wait until the smoke of battle clears and you'll discern the good you have won, the good that has been done. It's that determination. This is soul. It's the stick-to-itiveness, the perseverance, the constancy, the steadfastness of soul. You see? Where we don't, just wilt away when some little thing comes along and says, no, you can't do that, and you don't have enough this, and you don't have that, and you'll never be able to do it, and we just whimper away and say, oh, okay, yeah, I guess, no, I don't have it, and I can't do it. But soul says, do it, go for it, and be steadfast, and you'll discern the good that you have won. So it's steadfastness, and then it's really that, what would it be, that it raises up in us a sense of beauty, that we are aware of the beauty of our experience, so to say, the balance of our experience, that nothing can be out of balance, nothing can be ugly, nothing can be distorted in our experience, that all is fitting somehow into the identity of the identity principle, and nothing is working but that identity principle to show that everything is beautiful, every experience. And there we have again the grace. You see that somehow we are turned into something that is of the nature of grace and beauty ourselves. And finally we see that soul brings us a sense of calm, something we certainly want, where we don't feel ruffled all the time and upset all the time and unsettled. See, this is soul, isn't it? Soul makes us feel that calm, that everything is right, everything is settled, everything is in balance in the whole identity of being. Can you hear the tonality of soul? So we have really those very high attributes or characteristics in our character, in our nature, from the standpoint of science, really, that soul makes us an individual of integrity, that we have integrity in all that we do and are. We often use that symbol or that illustration of a ship too, that a ship is said to have integrity when it has no leaks, no breaks in it. It's intact, isn't it? It cannot be violated because of its integrity. I think it's something like that. We are intact. We have that integrity of soul that we never deviate from the standpoint of soul, and we follow the rule of soul as we have described it and now understand it to be. So that's, you see what that impact, you feel that impact from above, that first translation coming and breaking in on us, and the truth of science, divine science, absolute Christian science, reveals the unreality of the first degree of anything that is unlike soul, and is handling it, is mastering it, so that the D is being mastered by the B, and what is raised up is C, a second degree, a higher sense of who we are, what the situation really is, the true identity of us, the true identity of the situation. And finally, we would see that the third degree is actually what we get in the A. So the moment you look at those four in a little bit different light, when you look at them as the impact of the first translation, bringing out the second, then you see that it's a beautiful ascension out of the first degree into the second, and then into the third degree, which is reality. And what is it? Reality, what's the other designation there? Understanding, I believe. Understanding, yes. The third degree as a whole is understanding in the textbook, because that's the office of the Christ, to establish understanding. What understanding? The same understanding that God has of himself. And that's what the third degree indicates, that our understanding and God's understanding of himself are one and the same. So that would be very much indicated in the A, what that means from the standpoint of soul. Wow, we really touch on a lot, huh? A lot of things. So you can flow that the way you want to, but I just found in myself, after the first year or two of working with it, with the dimensional structuring, that I was falling into that pattern of first degree, second degree, third degree. Yeah. Okay. So there we have soul. And we can now move on to principle. All right. So you're quite right that when we first came down to the level of Christian Science in soul, that I took all of A. And then it dawned on me that I wanted to tell you about another way of working on that level, of flowing on that level, namely that we didn't have to start with A, but that if we really followed the flow that one finds in the two translations, that we would begin with D. We would see that D is the first degree, and it's uncovered as unreality by the first translation. And that is that unreality, that claim of unreality is being handled, worked on by soul through the be, right? Through be. How soul is dealing in the realm of its suppositional opposite. And as that modus operandi is going on, there is an outcome, and the outcome is C. The outcome is something higher and better. It's the second degree. Transitional qualities, it says in the textbook. Right? Evil beliefs disappearing. So you have a disappearing while something else is appearing. This is, by the way, soul, isn't it? It's funny, it comes up when we talk about this now, the point of soul. So you have that disappearing and appearing process going on, and that which is appearing now is higher within us than what it was, what it had been. And finally, you get the completion of that appearing and disappearing process, and the final result is the third degree. As the evil beliefs disappear altogether, nothing is left but that which is in absolute coincidence with God, with soul, with mind, with spirit, with soul, with principle, with life, truth, and love. That's what the third degree wants to show. And that third degree is understanding. It is the complete coincidence of our understanding with God's own understanding of himself, which I believe is the way that the translation began. Yes, you see it in the first translation, you know that it's God, man, idea. And idea is an image in mind, the immediate object of understanding. So that's the purpose of the translation, Christ's translation, is to bring out that divine reflection within us and establish that understanding of God as our own understanding. And it's a process that is working individually. It works with the individual. Actually works with every individual, and so it works with the collective and the universal, but on the basis of the individual. We come to principle now. Hopefully we're in some kind of a rhythm, a flow with our categories and where we are and what we're doing. So we are asking about principle and its ideas, the structuring of the ideas of principle in accord with the system that is represented by the design of being. So we see that we have a gathering of ideas that are telling us something about principle as what it itself is, what principle itself is. So it is not principle in relation to its idea. This would be divine science. It's not principle in relation to ideas, which would be absolute Christian science. It's not principle in relation to us, to the human condition. It's principle per se, the innate identity of principle. And so science itself will show us that itselfness, so to say, of principle. So from the standpoint of the word, we would perhaps see that principle is the Infinite One. It's the divine person. It is absolute. Principle is absolute, meaning relative to nothing. There's nothing else to which to relate to, you see. It's absolute. The Infinite One, because it is the Infinite One, is absolute. And then the Christ would show us something else, namely how that Infinite One, the Absolute, the Divine Person, a touch of how it expresses itself, how it is expressed. And so we would see that that Infinite One, Divine Person, is the triune principle. Okay? Good for you. Thank you. I hear that definiteness of soul. The triply divine principle. We're not in divine science, but we're seeing what principle in itself is. It is the triply divine principle. This is the, not three things, it's one. It's one. The one principle is triune. Yeah. It's a trinity in unity. And a sense of the self-fulfillment of that, how that is fulfilled, the outcome of that is the unity. This is the unity of God. Principle is the unity of God. And from the standpoint of science, what is this? Science says, this is science. This is science. And principle is science. It's the indivisible whole. An indivisible whole. Delicate, delicate shadings, really. Then we come to divine science now, the triune.
What makes it the triune? The three that are under the word?
It's the expression. It's somehow an inner expression of that Infinite One principle. But it never becomes more than the one principle, but the one principle is triune. That's how its inner self-expression of itself, the highest sense of its ability to express itself, is seen there as being a triune principle.
Does it mean life, truth, and love?
It means life, truth, and love, yes. Principle is life, truth, and love. Don't worry if it's not all clear, if it is questionable to you. It's all right. It's all right. You know, we just have to, as we said, weigh and reweigh and reweigh. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Every time we look at these things again and reweigh them again, we reweigh them in the light of our own experience. The experience that the Christ has given us, our life experience, is that other textbook that is teaching us and bringing us understanding. So what seems to be just and is just a concept now with many of us, as you ponder that concept, as you love it, as you develop the tonality of it, live with it, test it, weigh it, just like a scientist. This is what a scientist does in the laboratory, and we do it in the laboratory of life, in our experiences. We don't have to get heavy about it. We don't have to get burdensome about it. We don't have to feel, I don't get it, and I must get it, and if I don't get it, I'm not going to make it. I'm not a good scientist. This isn't what a scientist says. The scientist I love, I think, is so flexible, so open, so welcoming of of the new truth, and not expecting to just, jump on it and grab it and get control of it the moment he is introduced to it, but will love it and feel that nothing is said in concrete. I hope I've made that clear, that this is a working hypothesis and we are open to the polishing of it. For the most part, I think it may be all right. And if we want to correct it, we can only do that by being true to our categories and our love of the system and our love of science and our just being one with science in every way that we are led to be one with it. Not feeling, I've got to get control and dominion over this. Let it get dominion over you. That's the thing. So we can wrestle and strive and struggle with our subject, but it should be in a joyous way, in a happy way, in a hopeful way, expectant of good, expectant of the higher understanding, and not those intellectual wrestlings that are not beneficial. Not beneficial, where we argue with each other over every jot and tittle. Yeah. When you have the whole, we have a whole framework. Gosh, 95% of the battle is over, isn't it? Have such a framework. And if here and there we have to adjust a few things or whatever, this is nothing. It's just a polishing of things. Okay. So now let's look at divine science and see what divine science is going to tell us about principle and its ideas. And we know that we have certain ideas. I say we know that we have certain ideas. I want to again remind you to go back to the book by Max Kapler on the 7 synonyms for God, to go back to the study aid, to review and re-see again the layouts there for each of the 7 synonyms and their ideas in the dimensional presentation, and be familiar with that chapter that I think I recommended to you as preparation, that you would know how the whole methodology came about and what that methodology is for discerning the ideas on the levels. And it has to do with these questions that perhaps we have skewed a little bit to our present presentation, but essentially are the same. That now we are asking something in the light of divine science about the synonymous term. We're asking a question that is shaped and formed by the level. And so it's a question about the relationship of principle to its idea as a whole, which is what divine science is all about. And so we're asking, what is principle in the realm of its idea, of its own infinite self-expression of itself? Here we get the results immediately in the Word. The Word says, well, this principle in this field of divine science is that which is one with its idea. Principle and its idea is one here. Isn't that true? Is that not an idea or a rendering that we find in the compendiums at the point of the principles compendium that says that principle and its idea is one. Well, you see, during all those years, those ideas were all in together, the ideas of principle. We didn't have a clue that that might belong to principle at a certain level or from a certain standpoint in the calculus. And now it's as though principle would say, yes, this is the point at which I am one with my idea. Principle and idea is one. The oneness of principle and idea is another way of saying it. When we come to the Christ, we see that principle in this realm of the complete expression of itself is ever operative. Isn't that the Christ? Then we come to Christianity. We see that it's here that principle says, I am the principle of all. I'm the principle of all. That all ideas have the same principle, have one principle. It's interrelated being. So that realm, from the standpoint of Christianity, is a realm where being is interrelated, completely interrelated, bringing out the harmony of principle. So Christianity would see that realm as a realm of harmony. And then when we come to the standpoint of science within divine science, principle is saying, well, from the standpoint of science, can you see that I am the self-organizing principle? Here we have that terminology from our investigation of how principle is working in the universe, how it is beginning to be seen at the forefront of physics and of cosmology and of so many of the new sciences, that there is something else working than just the laws of physics and the ordinary laws that they have been aware of in the older paradigm, but that there is a principle of self-organization, meaning that something is working that is structuring everything, that is bringing out system, structure, classification. And so we come right into those terms that we find in the textbook and in the science of being, that principle in relation to its creation as a whole, its idea as a whole, is a system. Remember that we had, what did we have in mind? Law, in spirit, order, in soul, rule, and now we have system as a scientific tool. And so you also see that coming down from the level of science itself, at the point of science, that science translates and transforms itself into a system. It shows itself forth as that which is necessary to govern the whole idea of the principle. It comes as structure, as classification, which would include category. We would mean there category, classification, subclassification, sub-subclassification. This all is inherent in the meaning of system. And here we would see that the realm of the infinite principle and its idea is a realm of indivisibility. Indivisibility. So the indivisible whole, which principle itself is in relation to its idea an indivisibility relationship. The principle can never be divided from its idea. Principle falls back on the word and says principle and its idea is one, And this is an indivisibility relationship. So often you feel that there's a connection, a strong connection between the Word and science, don't you? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so we have that sense of divine self-organization. That realm shows us how principle organizes itself divinely. It shows us the divine self-government. It's a divine self-demonstration. I think I mentioned that to you, that really in divine science you get the great model for the perfect divinely deductive argument, where all the premises are right, the conclusion is right, and that a self-deductive or self-demonstrating argument, that's what the calculus does. Actually, just a side note, when we took the platform, many of you were in that class, do you remember that we saw how the platform was presenting an absolutely exquisite, divinely deductive argument? A self-demonstration, the self-demonstration of God, of being. And that matrix is really a matrix from the standpoint of divine science. It's all about divine science, even though it includes within itself, implicates within itself the further levels. So just remember that that term demonstration is much, much bigger than we think it is. We mustn't try to pull it down and make it serve our purposes so that we can make principle serve the purposes of what we want to demonstrate. It doesn't work that way. It never does. It never can. And the moment you grasp the concept of what it is to see that being itself is a divinely deductive argument, which actually in logic they would say it begs the question. It starts with that with which it will finish. This will never leave you once you see it and understand it. It will change your whole concept of what demonstration is.